What do this, and this all have in common? Turns out, a lot. There's one word that might single-handedly be the reason SpongeBob doesn't feel like this anymore. See, this is a version of SpongeBob that lived in a gap. There's a brief era where SpongeBob was unexpected, a hit the network didn't see coming, when executives didn't know what parts of the SpongeBob brand to protect yet. And arguably the best version of SpongeBob existed in this little gap. This isn't a statement of SpongeBob bad now. It's not a rosy, nostalgic look at the new through the past. There are specific, very real ways that SpongeBob as a show has changed and been altered that have turned this into something that might be a little too aware of itself. So what is that word? What happened? And when did SpongeBob become so self-conscious? There was a time where SpongeBob was moving so fast that people like C.H. Greenblatt were able to define the way the character worked. C.H. Greenblatt was a storyboard artist, writer, and director on the early seasons of SpongeBob. He is partially responsible for breaking the drawing, so to speak. These are gross-ups, and when combined with SpongeBob creator Steven Hillenburg's real-life biology background, they...
Terrible, SpongeBob.
Yeah. As 90s animation slowly started to become merch-friendly and sanitize itself, suddenly Nickelodeon's biggest show was sharpening itself in reverse. And directors like Tom Yasumi approved of it, pushed the show's storyboard artist to go further. These work because they're a violation of the rules of the show's animation. They were fast, immediate, biology destroying the illusion of animation. They gave the show a visual friction that kept you off center, and they were rare, a tiny spark of expressionism. But eventually, people like Greenblatt left, and the show began to misuse them and overuse them. It was no longer joke escalation punctuation. It was punctuation. Wait for it. Wait for it. Are you laughing yet? It wasn't used as an accent. It became the joke and it became aware of itself. The show would slowly start using the gross-ups to ask, isn't this face funny? Instead of this face makes this situation funnier. It became too aware of its impact, its internet memeability, which arguably the show as a whole did, because it started like this.
Good morning, Krusty Crew!
What would you like to order, Patrick?
One Krabby Patty, please!
SpongeBob was built as a pretty intelligent show, a workplace satire that worked for all ages. That was maybe its secret sauce at the start. Adults got it because it was a genre they understood. It was The Office under C before The Office. It was closer to Dilbert than anything else on its network. It's arguably just Clerks. The Krusty Krab is monotonous, exploitative, economically inefficient. They've got a terrible boss. The show trusted kids to understand that the world is unfair and adults are weird. So adults got it too. Episodes like this one in season 3, Nasty Patty, understood all of what's been discussed so far. The gross-ups, the workplace satire, it's all perfect because there's a natural friction in employment that's infinitely mineable. But slowly, the show turned into a theme park. Work wasn't soul-crushing anymore, it was silly. Mr. Krabs became a cartoon miser, and the promise the pilot set up of a guy just wanting this job so bad, well, that was gone. As the show moved into the mid-2000s, the show seemed to be more and more aware of its merch potential and franchise potential, especially with younger audiences. It stopped seeing the Krusty Krab as workplace chaos, and it slowly moved far beyond it and into territory that felt intentionally less accessible to adult audiences and more designed to cycle through kids growing in and out of interest with the show. It left behind its workplace sensibilities. That doesn't make the show bad, it just makes its goals different. And this is seen elsewhere as well.
Could be more marshy.
Chaos is, by definition, usually a little overwhelming, but it worked so well for early SpongeBob because it came from very specific places. Bikini Bottom, for a short time, was a place of boredom, routine. Regular people lived there. It felt lived in. And SpongeBob's menace worked because we saw it juxtaposed against boring, everyday people just trying to live their lives. Over time, that chaos became contagious, and suddenly SpongeBob's anarchy began to blend in with the absolute pandemonium of Bikini Bottom. Take something like Rock Bottom. This episode works because it's about the universal experience of not being understood, of miscommunicating. But Rock Bottom isn't anarchic, it's just there. And that feeling of space existing without SpongeBob makes this episode so eerie. SpongeBob was the straight man here. There's a friction between what the environment is and what SpongeBob is. Here, that friction is just reversed. As Bikini Bottom became an extension of SpongeBob, it lost that friction and had started to amplify the biggest change that SpongeBob underwent in big ways. If everything is weird, nothing is. But the characters changed around him as well.
Here, take your dirty, rotten money! I don't even know you anymore!
Taking dimensionality out of characters is rarely intentional, but it happens, and that might have been here to streamline its audience. Early SpongeBob believes in the world. Later SpongeBob performs for it. That's a huge distinction. His optimism and earnestness meant he was annoying by accident, a friction between his intentions and actions. But as the show wore on, he became annoying by design, and that friction fell away a bit. This is best shown in a quick thought exercise. Here, SpongeBob is being inconvenienced because of his well-meaning actions. He just wants what any reasonable person would want: his house back. Now, think about how later or current SpongeBob would behave in this situation. It would be different, wouldn't it? Squidward went from representing adult frustration and often being right but losing anyway, to existing just to suffer, a caricature instead of a character. And Sandy, similarly in some ways, becoming a caricature of the nerdy scientist. Before you knew it, the main cast had lost a lot of its dimensionality. And some of this was the natural reality of the internet and how studios and networks think.
That sounds like a really unfortunate mix.
The internet became truly popular right alongside SpongeBob. As it did, it quickly identified the most interesting part of SpongeBob's early run for it and for the network, like these gross-ups and the memes. It's maybe the most meme show of all time. As both the network and the show became aware of that fact, it went from a show that felt like it didn't know it was funny to a show that knows when it's being SpongeBob, when it's memeing. And as the show became more and more aware of itself, it became more and more about serving what sells, what's merchable, what's shareable, and maybe less about experimentation. SpongeBob became about how do we be more SpongeBob-y and less about how do we make SpongeBob better. Look, I think the show as a whole still works. The point is not SpongeBob bad now. The characters are still strong, animation can still be impressive, and it can still be funny. The show is still successful for a reason, but the edge SpongeBob lost isn't about success, it's about friction. Friction is the thing required for a show to maintain its interest long term, and it has to pervade the show in every aspect. And at some point, it's possible the network, Nickelodeon, decided it didn't trust its audience enough to give it that friction any longer. But as a result, SpongeBob is a show that's friction is now with what it was and what it is, instead of being a part of what makes it great. So if you feel like this guy isn't the same Sponge you remember, it's not nostalgia. You're right. I'm Dewey, and this has been